many other...
This is right, Arab.
Hello and welcome along to WION Live Broadcast from London. I'm Ollie Barrett, and in this bulletin we've got the latest on stories developing all around the world. First, though, the headlines. China defends incursions into Taiwan's air defense identification zone, saying its actions are justified to safeguard Chinese sovereignty. Beijing warns that calls for independence will bring disaster to the people of Taiwan. The EU envoy will visit Tehran to lead talks to revive a troubled nuclear deal between Iran and major powers. The visit comes amid mounting pressure from EU member states and the US for a resumption of talks on Washington's return to the agreement. Reports say Alibaba Group founder Jack Ma has resurfaced in Hong Kong. Jack Ma had been largely out of public view since a clampdown by Chinese regulators on his business empire late last year. Hong Kong suspends schools, stock market trading and government services as a major typhoon descends on the city. The Hong Kong Observatory says heavy rain brought by Typhoon Kompasu could lead to flooding in low-lying areas. Radio waves originating near the heart of our Milky Way galaxy baffle scientists. Astronomers have not been able to identify what is causing these mysterious signals. And Cristiano Ronaldo scores his 58th hat-trick for club and country and takes his international tally to 115 goals. Portugal thrashed Luxembourg 5-0 to stay in the race for the 2022 World Cup.
He's done it again! Hat-trick number 10 for Portugal. 2 from the spot in the first.
After another summer of shadow boxing, the United Kingdom and European Union are facing their next standoff. Northern Ireland is once again at the heart of it. The European Commission will today set out proposals to address tensions over trade on the island of Ireland. Brussels will put to Britain a package of measures to ease the transit of goods. It is likely to fall short of the overhaul London is demanding of post-Brexit trading rules for Northern Ireland. In a speech on Tuesday, the UK's Brexit Minister David Frost presented a heavily revised version of the Northern Ireland post-Brexit protocol to EU diplomats in Lisbon. He says it takes two to fix the relationship and rebuild trust.
Fourth, that the EU and we have got into a low equilibrium, somewhat fractious relationship, but that it need not always be like that, but also that it takes two to fix it. And fifth, and finally, that fixing the very serious problem we have in the Northern Ireland Protocol is a prerequisite for getting to that better place. The Northern Ireland Protocol is the biggest source of mistrust between us, and for all kinds of reasons, we need to fix this problem. I recognise that's not easy. The history here does matter. I do understand why the EU finds it difficult to come back to an agreement that was reached only 2 years ago, though obviously that in itself is far from unusual in international relations. Equally, there's a widespread feeling in the UK that the EU did try to use Northern Ireland to encourage UK political forces to reverse the referendum result, or at least to keep us closely aligned with the EU. And moreover, that the protocol represents a moment of EU overreach when the UK's negotiating hand was tied, and therefore cannot reasonably last in its current form.
Under the current arrangement, a hard border between Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, and the Republic of Ireland is avoided by keeping Northern Ireland partly in the European Union's single market for goods and its customs union. But it also creates a new trade border within Great Britain for goods moving from mainland GB to Northern Ireland. Unionists in Northern Ireland say it undermines their place in the UK. The EU proposals are expected to ease custom controls such as clearance of meat, dairy and other food products and the flow of medicines to the British province from the UK mainland. The European Commission has, however, made it clear that it will not open the protocol which governs Northern Ireland's post-Brexit trading position for a wholesale renegotiation. The Commission is also expected to set out plans to engage more with the people of Northern Ireland. Now, Europe is currently in the grip of an unfolding energy crisis. Natural gas prices have soared 600% so far this year. That crisis is now hitting key economic areas across Europe, from fertiliser plants to food industry and the health sector. The crisis is being driven by multiple factors, including rising post-COVID demand, weather-related events, glitches at gas production plants across the world, and speculative trading on the EU's emissions market. Europe's gas crisis has sparked questions over the role of Russian President Vladimir Putin in exploiting, as some would see it, the rising demand and low supply. Russia's decision not to transit more gas through Ukraine or to replenish European storage sites has exacerbated the crisis. The impact of Moscow's decision has been evident even in countries such as Spain and the UK, which have little direct reliance on Russian gas. Critics accuse Russia of weaponizing gas supplies. The International Energy Agency and some in the European Parliament have accused Moscow of intentionally limiting gas to Europe. They say Russia is attempting to blackmail the EU and Germany in a bid to pressure them into granting pending approvals for Russia's Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Last week, Russian President Vladimir Putin blamed Europe for the current crisis, saying the continent was wrong to reduce the share of long-term deals in natural gas trade in favour of the spot market, where prices have surged.
Практика наших европейских партнеров. Эта практика еще раз.
Another factor is the practice of our European partners. This practice has once again confirmed that, in fact, they made mistakes. We talked to the European Commission's previous lineup, and all its activity was aimed at phasing out of so-called long-term contracts. It was aimed at transition to spot gas trade. And as it turned out, it has become obvious today that this practice is a mistake.
The European Union is heavily reliant on natural gas imports that come from outside the bloc. Russia is the largest exporter of supplies into it. It represents nearly 43% of the EU's natural gas imports. Last month, Russian gas company Gazprom announced that the €10 billion pipeline Nord Stream 2 had been completed. The Kremlin says its launch will help combat the energy crisis in Europe. The pipeline runs on the bed of the Baltic Sea from Russia to Germany, but certification from Germany could take several months. Ukraine has warned Europe that Nord Stream 2 could be used by Moscow to exert pressure, and the pipeline's also faced resistance from the United States. Leaders of the G20 group of nations have agreed to work together to try and head off a humanitarian disaster in Afghanistan. The European Union has pledged a €1 billion aid package for the country, including money for urgent humanitarian needs and Afghanistan's neighbours who are taking in Afghans fleeing the Taliban. Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi hosted the virtual summit and insisted that debate over solutions must go beyond the usual club of Western allies. G20 leaders agreed unanimously about the need to alleviate the crisis in Afghanistan, where banks are running out of money, food prices have soared, leaving millions at the risk of severe hunger. They also discussed the need to maintain focus on counter-terrorism efforts, including against threats from ISIS-K.
I think this is the first occasion when leaders have given a multilateral response to the Afghan crisis. And it is really one of the first statements of multilateralism that there has been this year.
Mario Draghi says negotiations will be necessary with the Taliban to get aid distributed, but insisted that is not a political recognition of the group.
Now we have to answer the humanitarian crisis. That's the very first thing. If that requires, and it will require contacts with the Taliban. There's no alternative to having contacts with them. They are essential for this answer, for this response to be effective. But as you said, that doesn't imply a recognition. A recognition will have to acknowledge that the Taliban will be judged for what their deeds are, not their words.
US President Joe Biden, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan also joined the virtual summit. In his remarks, Prime Minister Narendra Modi emphasized the need for the international community to ensure that Afghanistan has unhindered access to humanitarian assistance. The Indian Prime Minister also underlined the need to ensure that Afghan territory doesn't become a source of radicalization and terror regionally or globally. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said that Germany is not yet prepared to recognize the Taliban as Afghanistan's government, since it hasn't met the inclusiveness standards demanded of it.
We all have expressed today that as far as we are concerned, as I have said and many others as well, that in our assessment today the Taliban government is not inclusive. Therefore, the issue of recognition of the Taliban is not on the agenda. Nevertheless, there must and should be talks, as is now increasingly happening. Germany has been in talks with the Taliban for some time now. I think we all have nothing to gain if the entire monetary system or financial system in Afghanistan collapses, because that means that humanitarian aid can no longer be provided. Of course, it is not always easy to draw the line, but to watch 40 million people fall into chaos, so to speak, because neither electricity can be supplied nor a financial system exists, that cannot and must not be the aim of the international community.
Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin didn't attend but sent their representatives. Ahead of the meeting, China demanded that economic sanctions on Afghanistan be lifted and said billions of dollars of Afghan assets should be unfrozen internationally and handed back to Kabul. Now, after being largely out of public view since last year, Alibaba Group founder Jack Ma has resurfaced and met with business associates in Hong Kong. The Chinese billionaire has been maintaining a low profile since a clampdown on his business after a controversial speech where he criticized China's financial regulators. That speech triggered a chain of events that resulted in the shelving of his Ant Group's mega IPO.
Largely out of public view since a regulatory clampdown on his empire late last year, Chinese billionaire and Alibaba co-founder Jack Ma has recently been spotted meeting with business associates in Hong Kong, two sources tell Reuters. Ma's recent visit to the Asian financial hub was his first in a year, a source revealed. Ma has been keeping a low profile ever since Chinese regulators pulled the plug on what was to be the record-setting $37 billion IPO for his Ant Financial Group, seen by many as a retaliation for a speech he gave last October in which he criticized China's financial regulators. Ever since then, speculation has swirled about his whereabouts as the camera-friendly, outspoken entrepreneur seemingly went underground with just a limited number of public appearances in mainland China. He briefly resurfaced in January, speaking to a group of teachers by video, which eased concerns about his unusual absence from the limelight. Since then, Ma made a rare visit to Alibaba's Hangzhou campus during the firm's annual Ali Day staff and family event in May. according to company sources. In September, Alibaba said it would invest about $15.5 billion by 2025 in support of President Xi Jinping's wealth-sharing initiative known as, quote, Common Prosperity. Xi's government has been on a tear, cracking down on everything from China's fintech companies to the video gaming industry to tutoring services, but it's Jack Ma's Alibaba and its tech rivals that have bore the brunt of the crackdown. Alibaba was fined a record $2.75 billion in April over monopoly violations. Comments from Ma typically go through Alibaba. The company did not immediately respond to requests for comment.
China has issued another stark warning to Taiwan. Beijing says calls for independence will only bring disaster for the people of Taiwan. China's also defending record incursions by its Air Force jets in Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone. Officials from the Chinese Communist Party say such actions are necessary to safeguard China's sovereignty. A spokesperson for China's Taiwan Affairs Office says the purpose of the maneuvers was to fundamentally safeguard the overall interests of the Chinese nation. He blamed actions by Taiwan's independence-leaning, democratically elected government and its relations with foreign nations for heightening tensions.
误判形势，勾连外部势力，不断进行谋独挑衅。 是造成当前台海形势紧张动荡的根源。台独只会给广大台湾同胞带来灾难，坚决制止谋独行径，才能维护广大台湾同胞的安全和福祉。解放军演训活动是为捍卫国家主权和领土完整所采取的必要行动。
China flew 56 planes off the southwest coast of Taiwan on a single day earlier this month, setting a new record and capping 4 days of sustained pressure involving 149 flights. Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen vowed to defend the island from China's rising pressure. Taiwan also scrambled jets to warn Chinese planes, and its troops have been training with US special forces. But Beijing rubbishes any talk of Taiwan's independence, saying both sides of the Taiwan Strait belong to China. Beijing also claims the CCP's fight against Taiwan's independence is necessary and just.
两岸关系绝不是国与国关系，所谓互不隶属就是赤裸裸的贩卖两国论。无论企图怎么包装这个台独分裂主张，都不能掩盖其分裂国家的险恶用心。由此更加说明是民进党当局的谋独挑衅，造成当前两岸关系的紧张动荡，威胁台海地区的和平稳定。我们打击遏制台独。
More than 700 residents have been ordered to abandon their homes on the Spanish island of La Palma as red-hot lava advances towards their neighbourhood. On Tuesday, there were 64 seismic movements at the Cumbre Vieja volcano, the strongest of which measured 4.1. Lava from the eruption that began on September the 19th has laid waste to nearly 600 hectares of land in total.
Over 700 residents on the Spanish island of La Palma were ordered to abandon their homes on Tuesday as red-hot lava advanced towards their neighborhood. According to the Canary Islands Volcanic Emergency Plan, those in La Laguna were told to evacuate with their belongings and pets as a river of molten rock flowed from Cumbre Vieja, a volcano in La Palma's northeastern region.
Getting things out of my aunt's house before this demon arrives here, because the path it flows leads to my aunt and grandparents' house. At least get out what we can, because you can't fight against nature.
We've made a preventative evacuation with enough time to be able to take out everything that was necessary, documents, things of sentimental value.
There were 64 seismic movements on Tuesday, the strongest measuring 4.1, the Spanish National Geological Institute said. Lava from the eruption that began on September 19th has laid waste to nearly 1,500 acres and destroyed 1,200 buildings. The volcano's cone partially collapsed last weekend, forming a new river of lava that devoured banana and avocado plantations and most of the remaining houses in the town of Toroque. Nearly 6,700 people have been evacuated since the eruptions began on La Palma, which is home to roughly 83,000 people.
3 months after billionaire US businessman Jeff Bezos soared into space aboard a rocket ship built by his Blue Origin company, the craft is set to take another all-civilian crew on a suborbital ride. Boldly going in the lead role this time is Star Trek actor William Shatner, better known to many as Captain Kirk. The 90-year-old is due to become the oldest person ever to venture into space.
Thing to have. He's the oldest guy that went into space.
The suspense is building for space junkies and Star Trek fans ahead of Blue Origin's rocket launch with TV's Captain Kirk, actor William Shatner, who at age 90 will become the oldest person to travel to space.
I want to have the vision. I want to see space. I want to see the Earth. I want to see what we need to do to save Earth. I want to have a perspective that hasn't been shown to me before.
Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket launch, originally scheduled for Tuesday, was postponed for 24 hours due to high winds. The 4-person flight will now blast off Wednesday from the West Texas town of Van Horn. The flight is expected to roughly follow the duration and path of the company's inaugural commercial trip on July 20th, when founder Jeff Bezos and 3 other passengers flew some 66 miles above Earth, experiencing a few minutes of weightlessness before their crew capsule parachuted safely back to the floor of the Texas desert. The whole trip lasted just over 10 minutes. On board was aviation pioneer Wally Funk, who at 82 became the oldest person to launch into space at the time, a record Shatner will shatter. Joining him Wednesday will be former NASA engineer Chris Boshausen, Blue Origin Vice President and engineer Audrey Powers, and clinical research entrepreneur Glenn DeVries. The launch comes less than 2 weeks after the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration said it will review safety concerns raised by former and current Blue Origin employees who said the company prioritized speed and cost savings over safety, something Blue Origin's Powers was asked about Tuesday on the CBS Morning Show.
Well, that just hasn't been my experience at Blue. We're exceedingly thorough. I've worked on New Shepard for 8 years now in a variety of roles, and I can't say enough about the team of professionals that work on this program.
The company did not disclose how much any of the passengers had paid or whether any had been allowed to fly for free, though Shatner said Blue Origin approached him about taking the flight and has admitted he's a bit nervous about really heading into space.
I look forward to your return, all of you.
Thank you. And so do we look forward to our return.
That's all we have time for on today's WION Live broadcast from London. Thanks very much indeed for being with us as ever. I'm Ollie Barrett. For more global news and indeed news from beyond this planet and updates, stay tuned to WION World is One.
This is right,